Hello, this is Brett from SurvivalComms, and welcome to the Camping Hammock and You, Theory, Practice, and Whatnot. I've been backpacking with camping hammocks well over 1,200 miles now, and I wanted to share some of the other information from other videos I've made in the past and kind of put them into one video based upon what I've learned about using hammocks as a shelter system, why I like using hammocks as a shelter system, and how to make things easier on someone who perhaps is considering utilizing this type of system as a man-portable shelter solution. The modules of my system allow me to tailor my load without having to put a whole lot of thought into it. For example, if I just wanted to utilize a tarp, I would just take modules 2 and 3 and I would have all the equipment necessary. The first module we'll discuss is the hammock module itself. It consists of an Eno nest hammock, a cheapy bug net, which I have modified. I removed the stuff sack that comes with most of these at the bottom that's stitched to it. Be very careful removing it. It serves no real purpose for the way I deploy my hammock system. I always just zip the top zipper up, and I don't use that, and I just zip the bottom one up to the top of that, and I zip it all the way down to enter and exit the net. And I use this glow-in-the-dark parachute cord. I strip the core out of it, and I have it on the inside and the outside, so that way if I need to get out in the nighttime for the call of nature, I can just open this thing up really easily and find my zipper pull to get in and out. And two 15-foot sections of 3/4 inch mule tape. Weight of module 1 is 33 ounces. The tarp and hammock module are both contained in what I call sausage sacks, which are essentially double-ended stuff sacks which have cord locks on either end of them. I sewed them together out of ripstop nylon, and for example this one here is large enough to contain the hammock, the bug net, and the support straps. And you can see at either end we have carabiners, and you can see the white glow-in-the-dark piece of 550 cord tied on there represents the end where the support straps are stowed. And here are the contents laid out for you. The second module is my tarp module, which is a 7x10 AquaQuest tarp with shock cord on the tie-outs. Weight of this module is 17 ounces. The glow-in-the-dark parachute cord at the ends represents that this is the center ridge of the tarp, so when I set it up from either end, there's no problems with it being flipped on there incorrectly or me putting a corner tie out instead of the center one if I had to set it up quickly in the rain. And when I talk about shock cord tie outs, this is what I use, and when we go to set it up, I'll go ahead and show you how useful these are in the corners to configure your shelter system for different options. The third module is a stake and ridgeline module, and that consists of 6 titanium stakes with 6 feet each of micro cord guidelines, 30 foot of 550 cord, and 2 micro cord Prusix. Weight of this module is 5 ounces. This is the contents on my stake bag. You have the bag itself, you have 30 foot of 550 cord with my 2 micro cord Prusix, and we have a large figure 8 loop at this end. And then we have 5 of the stakes here are configured for transport, with the 6th one being displayed like this with the cordage off of it. And at this end of the cordage you can see that I use ball bearing fishing swivels, which don't weigh much. They weigh 1/2 ounce for all 6 of them, and this just slides over the micro cord, making it connection easy. It allows it to swivel around if required. And I also have these little plastic adjusters I made out of 70 thousandths thick plastic, and you can see if I need to adjust the length I can do so. To make cord adjusters for your tarp guy line, I just take this as like just a piece of plastic, and I use my leather hole punch and knock a couple holes in it. Run your dummy cord through it. Like that. Take your stake, run that through your stake, and hold this down here and run this back through. When you get it back through, just make yourself a figure 8 stopper knot here, dress it up, and then you've got yourself a cord. cord lock, adjustment. by just tightening up on this right here on the fly. And there you have it. Before we go out and do our setup, it's important we go over some hammock knots. Some of these knots you may know, others may be new to you, but these are the knots I use in my setup. Some of the knots are pre-rigged and other ones are done on the fly while we're setting this stuff up. The old adage about if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot does not work in this circumstance, because you may get yourself set up for that first night, but that next morning you're going to be working your butt off trying to untie those knots. We're going to breeze through these knots real quick. There's we're going to use larger size rope with contrasting colors. It'll make it easier to demonstrate the knots for you. The first knot we're going to do is the figure 8 loop. You'll use this at the end of your suspension straps for your hammock, and then you'll use it for the end of your ridge line. So just make a bite. All that is just fold the rope over like that. Then just go around itself like that. Around again. Then pass it back through that first loop you made. And that's it. That's the figure 8 loop. Now we're going to make our Prusik loops. The knot I was taught to utilize for doing that is a double fisherman knot. It's a very strong knot. You can use a square knot if you choose to, but it's the one I'm going to show you. So just take and make a loop, and you have your two ends of the loop parallel with one another like this. You start on the outside, under, going back towards the inside, over, through the X. And that is a standard fisherman knot right there. To make a stopper for that, you're going to tie another one. So again, outside, over, under, inside, under, back over again. And if you look, my thumb is that X that marks the spot. That's where you're going to go ahead, pass through your line, and you can see right here, extremely strong knot. Stops against one another. You can adjust the size of the loops. And there you have it, double fisherman knot. Now we're going to make our Prusik knot. This represents our ridge line, and this is our Prusik loop that we just made. What you're going to do is start out, place your ridge line on top of it, go through it once, go through it again twice, then a third time, and then dress up your knot. And you can see it slides along. Load the knot. You can see it does not slide at all. So this is a very handy knot to know besides just the world of hammocks. The alpine butterfly is also an important knot to know. This is what I use to make a loop in the ridge line for an anchor point for the trucker's hitch. And it's also a great knot to know just to make loops in anything. You just take your rope, make 2 twists like that. Take this, go under, back through, and the alpine butterfly knot. It's a great way to make. It's a strong knot, pulls great from either direction. It's great for putting loops in a line. Now our munner hitch. Our munner hitch is going to be our friction knot that we're going to use for our support straps. It's a very simple knot to make. You make one turn, you fold it over, clip your carabiner on, and bam, voila. And you can see that it pulls in this direction and it pulls in the opposite direction, providing friction against itself. Now to tie our overhand safety and quick release, what we do is basically tie an overhand knot, place our safety in here, and this provides a stop for the munner hitch and a quick release. So you can see as we pull it tight, this provides a positive stop. And then to untie the knot or the hitch, you just pull this loose and it can pull all the way out, or you can just unhook it from your carabiner. The girth hitch is simplicity itself. All you're doing is hitching the girth of the tree with your figure 8 loop. Just like that. Okay, to make our trucker's hitch, all we do is take our line. Our line is already secured to another tree. We make our mark for our loop. And then we just go ahead and make our alpine butterfly. Like so. Circle that tree, making sure you're not standing on your line. Pull it through, and then tensioning your line, just like that. And then making an overhand safety. To secure your knot. To put it all together with our hammock, you find 2 trees or vertical supports that are sized large enough to support your weight and the weight of your hammock system, approximately 3 to 5 paces away from one another. Your ideal hammock setup will be 2 trees, and the 2 trees should be between 3 to 5 paces away from one another. Then, deploying your support straps, start on one side in approximately head height. Take your figure 8 loop and girth hitch your support strap around your first support. Then walk over to your next support, approximately head height on the other side. Then go ahead and taking your hammock and holding it under your arm. You'll go ahead and tie a munner hitch with safety on your first carabiner. Okay, now taking your hammock and your suspension line, make a munner hitch. Munner hitch is a simple knot. Make a loop like that. You fold it over. You apply your carabiner, just like that. And it goes back and forth both ways. And you just tie a safety in it, which is an overhand knot. A quick release. And it's nice and strong. Deploying your hammock, going this direction here, and doing the same with the opposite side. Then level your hammock. Approximately you want to keep your head and feet level. And you want to adjust your hang angle so it's a slight hang angle but not banjo tight. So you want it as level as possible without being too much so. Once you set into the hammock and load your system, you're going to get a little bit of drop in it. And you do not want the bottom of your hammock to be further away from the ground than you're comfortable falling if something goes wrong. After making our girth hitch, we just extend our line all the way to the opposite tree or opposite support, and then using a trucker's hitch, tension our ridge line. When we're done, we want the ridge line to exist 12 to 14 inches above this seam. This ensures that when the hammock is loaded, that it's not going to contact the insect net, and the insect net is not going to bear any of the weight. The insect net is not designed for that, and placing weight on it will render it unserviceable. Evening's coming, you want insect protection, just deploy it. When we go to set up our overhead cover, which is basically just placing the tarp over it, we've already got our ridge line in place. All we have to do is essentially hook our prusik through our little shot cord loops, or if you don't desire to use that, just use the more rigid loops. I prefer the shot cord loops because it's easier and it's kind of self-tensioning. All you have to do to attach your tarp to your ridge line is take one of your prusiks, run it through one of your shot corded loops, place a toggle of some sort in here, and then you can adjust the tension with the prusik, like so. All you do at that point is once you deploy the hammock, and these are all set up on the ridge line here, which is this position and this position here, you can go ahead and take your stakes out and deploy your stakes, and this gives you a standard tarp cover. Here's the hammock rigged for inclement weather with the tarp. And this is rigged for overhead protection and ventilation here. As you can see, I'm just using the hiking poles and the corners here, and that's why I use elastic shot cord on all my tie outs, so I can tie it out, and if I need to go to make it for inclement weather, just drop my poles out. And it drops back down. This setup here, I can get cover and ventilation. And I basically have it on both sides with using 2 hiking poles. Let's discuss some of the pros of selecting a hammock for your man portable shelter solution. First is comfort. The hammock excels in warm climates where your body is basically off the ground and breezes cool you through convection. The system is dry. You're off the ground. There are no sleeping surface irregularities to consider in using the hammock, meaning you don't have to worry about rocks and roots and clearing out your campsite before erecting your shelter. It minimizes insect and wildlife incursions, especially crawling insects, reptiles, stuff like that. The second is deployability. The hammock can be used on non-level terrain. It can be used in marshy, muddy, or cluttered terrain. It can be used indoors under constructed cover if required. Another benefit is the modularity of the system, whereas you can use the individual items of the shelter system to construct other shelters as necessary. You can utilize the tarp to set up a tarp type shelter if you're not able to set up a hammock for some reason or the other. You can utilize the bug net for insect protection if that's required, whereas with a tent it's extremely difficult to try to configure that as a hammock and to be more flexible in your shelter setup. The hammock can also be used as a comfortable camp chair if you're stopping for a temporary break. And the hammock system is configurable for varying conditions depending upon the amount of equipment that you're willing to bring with you. So if the temperature changes, the rain conditions change, you can configure the hammock to maximize your comfort. Number 4 is expense. This entire system can be built very inexpensively, and not that I'm advocating you get the bottom of the barrel quality items, but this is just an example here. A hammock can be picked up for $25, a bug net for $20, a tarp for $30, and then $10 will get you enough stakes and cordage to assemble an entire system similar to what I have here. The fifth pro that we're going to discuss is weight. The weight is exceptional for functionality of the system. My particular system here weighs 3 pounds 7 ounces complete. It's certainly not something for someone who's an ultra light enthusiast, but for its flexibility, I think that the weight is extremely acceptable. Now let's briefly discuss the cons. The first con is sleeping in a hammock isn't for everyone. Your mileage may vary. The best thing to do is go out and buy yourself one of these inexpensive hammocks, take and set it up in the yard, take a nap, see if you fall asleep, if you're comfortable or whatever have you, take it on a short camping trip, try it out before you commit whole hog into selecting a hammock as a shelter solution. The second is cold weather. I always carry a closed cell foam sleeping pad, which is a 3/4 length, and with that in a hammock between my body and the hammock itself, I'm good down to about 50 degrees. Now, when it gets colder than that, I end up using an underquilt. And I find the underquilt to be comfortable for me down to 30 degrees. Anything below 30 degrees, I find more comfort in setting up my tarp as a tarp type shelter and using a more conventional sleep on the ground system. The third con is weight. Gucci tents do weigh a lot less than a hammock system. The problem is the Gucci tents have the correspondingly higher price tag. So if you're well heeled and you want to buy a Hyperlight Mountain Gear tent, Cuban fiber, stuff like that, knock yourself out. Those tents are really cool. Number 4 is your gear is only protected by that elevated tarp. The gear that you try to put in the hammock with you, probably 8 out of 10 times is going to get thrown out during the middle of the night and it's going to be on the ground. So what I do is I take all of my gear, my pack and everything, and I place it into a contractor liner, and I just put it underneath the hammock itself, and that protects it from the weather, and I don't have to worry about the stuff falling out in the middle of the night. Number 5, the hammock may not be best for the tactical environment, meaning that if you're in a position to where you feel like you may encounter armed hostiles for whatever reason, you're moving yourself from a position of rudimentary cover and sleeping on the ground to, at best, a position of concealment by hanging yourself above the ground in the hammock. And you can sleep with your rifle in a hammock. It's not terribly comfortable. The compromise that I use in my particular circumstances is I sleep with my sidearm and a Hill People kit gear bag. Attached to my chest, and I find that to be a very comfortable compromise. Number 6 is a complicated setup for new users. Until you establish your own system for setting up your hammock shelter system, you kind of seem like you're chasing your tail for a while, trying to adjust knots and everything like that, but give it time and basically utilize your system in different circumstances, and you will build that familiarity with your equipment that's going to enable you to set up your shelter system quicker than most people can set up a tent or a tarp. If you made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching the content, and I hope that it helps you out. I didn't intend for the movie to be, or the video itself to be this long, but every time I brought up something, it brought up something else to mind, and I wanted to make sure that I covered as many bases as I could for the benefit of the audience. And again, I hope this helps. This is Brett from SurvivalComms. Till next time.